Ethanol shield. This was recommended by a friend of mine from Pennsylvania. So they own a lawnmower shop that I helped work at for a long time, and he always recommended this stuff. Helps to eliminate and sort of allow your engine to process the fuel easier with the ethanol in it. So helps your carburetor as well if you have carbureted engines. But you can use this just like stable. You can add it in. There's different mix rates here on the bottle. So depending on what kind of engine you have, how long you're going to be using it for, storing it, you can do that with this. So, but yeah, ethanol shield. We have a 5-gallon fuel can here, and I'm going to do the stabilize / storage mix rate. So it's 1 ounce per 2.5 gallons. So that means I have a 5-gallon fuel tank. I'm going to add 2 ounces of this product in there. And this has a nice little indicator on the side of the bottle right here. If you can see that. So basically I can just use that to determine how many ounces I'm putting in based on what was already in the bottle. So we just added 2 ounces of ethanol shield to our 5-gallon fuel tank. And I like to just gently shake it up a little bit. Try to get that stabilizer mixed around. I just changed the oil on this generator. This is one of the newer Honda EU2200i. See right here, so it's an inverter style generator, so that means basically it has special electronics and components that it can regulate the engine speed and maintain the proper output voltage for the generator. So that means that you can plug in sensitive electronics to this generator and not have any fear that they're going to be damaged. So this is really great because depending on the load of the generator, the engine speed will change. So if I just have, say, I'm plugging in like an air mattress to inflate it when I'm camping, those are usually pretty low, like 500 watts or less. So it doesn't work very hard, right? It's a 2200 watt generator. But now if I put in, say, a coffee maker plugged into this, you'd hear the engine rev up, and until the coffee maker was done making some coffee, it would rev that engine up until we were all done. So, but just a few good things about this generator. But like I said, I just changed the oil. I also drained out the fuel tank because there were some particles, some dirt, that kind of stuff in there. So it was running a little bit, not rough, but not as smooth as I wanted it to. We were up camping. It was about 5,000 feet elevation. So I wanted to make sure the fuel tank was clear. I also drained out the carburetor bowl, make sure that had fresh fuel. We'll be putting in fresh fuel. So we'll see how it runs this time, especially with the ethanol treatment in there. That should keep the fuel lasting longer, because these sit most of the time, but I do run them every month just to make sure that they'll be ready to go when we have to use them. So I'm going to put fuel in now, and then we'll start her up. And by the way, if you guys ever need a new fuel can, because you find the plastic fuel cans don't work, so where we live it gets really hot, and I keep these fuel cans in a cabinet in our garage, so they can easily get very hot in our garage. So I had plastic fuel cans prior to this, metal. I had 2 of these metal ones, and these are a really good product because first of all, they're metal. They're going to hold up much longer than the plastic ones that typically you see people have. Additionally too, they have kind of a built-in safety feature. The cap that you open up to put the fuel in to fill this up, it's spring loaded. So what that means is, as this fuel can is sitting in your garage or in your shop, wherever you have it stored, and it's getting hotter, there's going to be pressure building up inside the fuel can. And eventually then the spring pressure of this cap is going to be overcome by the pressure in the can. So what that means to you is that this can is not going to blow out or bulge or anything like that, or over pressurize itself. And that's actually what happened to my last fuel can. One of my plastic fuel cans prior to these two, the seam on that plastic actually broke apart and it was leaking, and I lost about half the fuel in that can. Granted, it was in a cabinet, so it didn't spill everywhere. It actually just evaporated because it's gasoline. but I ended up wasting money because I lost half of that gas. So I would say if you're gonna buy a fuel can, and these do come in different sizes too. I have a 5-gallon one in my hand right now, but they do sell these in different sizes. So you can find these online, like Granger. I think Northern Tool has these. I'm sure there are other places too. But these are a Just Right brand safety can. And these are nice because they have the flexible nozzle. I've seen these fuel cans that have a little bit smaller diameter nozzle, but if you want to have a faster fill rate, I would just say find the one that has this bigger nozzle. I think it's 3/4 of an inch. I can list that info in the video description. But like I said earlier, so these are nice because in order to fill, you have to pull up on this handle, this silver handle here, and that'll actually open up the valve to let the fuel come out. Now when you fill, you open it up here, okay? And this is the one that's kind of that safety feature. So if it gets too much pressure inside the can, this eventually will sort of pop up and depressurize the can so it doesn't overexpand or anything. And we're almost up to the little red indicator inside of this fuel tank of the Honda. So these Hondas come with a removable filter that's just in the top of the fuel tank, and that little filter piece has a red ring, which is your max fill. That's what the manufacturer states. That's how high you should fill it to allow for any expansion of the gasoline. I filled it up higher because I was running it right away and be running it for a long time. So, you know, I wouldn't say fill it up to the very brim because that's not good. But if you overfill past the red line a little bit, that's okay. So we have it totally filled now. I actually went over the red line by accident, but like I said, it's okay. We're gonna be running it for a little bit to test it out. This 2200 again, that's max. So if you had a, you know, some type of load that was only going to be put on the generator for a few seconds or so, you'd be safe to go up to 2200. Now, if you had multiple loads, you know, refrigerator, coffee maker, that kind of thing running, whatever it is, you want to make sure that if you're continually running the generator, you don't go above 1800 watts, and that's specified in the user manual for this generator. We have another generator that we'll show another time. That one is a 7,000 watt generator, but again, that one has a rated wattage of 5,500. So again, these numbers don't always mean that's how much you can put on it and run it all day long. Again, you don't want to overload this machine because it does have safeties built in as well. So if you overload it, it'll open up the output. You have to turn it off and restart it, and then it'll be okay. But again, just to preserve the life of your generator, you're putting less work on the engine, that kind of thing. You know, get the right size generator for your needs. So again, that's what the number means on this generator for today. So first thing before we start would be to check the oil. Manufacturer again recommends check the oil level every time before you start it. We just changed the oil. I have not ran it because there was no fuel in the tank, like I mentioned. So we know the oil level is okay. So we're good there. Additionally, you could check the air filter if you haven't ran it in a long time. I don't know, I forget how long it is between checking of air filters or changing, but that's also in the manual. But really just to start the engine up, check the oil every single time. Next, there's a fuel cap, a fuel shutoff on the fuel cap. So right now it's on the off position. I turn it over to the on, and we'll show a close-up video of that as well later on. Then on this side of the generator, where we have our access panel to the dipstick for the oil, which is right here, so you just need a flathead screwdriver if you were going to check the oil there. Like I said, so open the fuel cap switch, and we're going to turn our ignition as well as the fuel flow. This is a combination switch, so it actually will, you know, you've seen some engines have a little valve right by the fuel tank on the bottom to turn the fuel on, and then you would have a separate ignition switch somewhere else. Well, on these Hondas, it's all integrated into one switch right here. So when I turn that to on now, the fuel can flow. There is actually a vacuum powered fuel pump in here, which is tied to the crankcase of the engine. So as the engine runs, that fuel pump is running. It's powered by the vacuum in the engine crankcase, and that's going to push the fuel to the carburetor. This is a carbureted engine. So again, it's not as nice as some other ones, like our 7,000 watt generator is actually fuel injected. So that one, you don't even have to worry about choking or anything like that. This one, because it's carbureted, we turn the fuel on, turn the ignition on. We also apply the choke levers here. All the choke does is just close off essentially the intake to the engine to let less air in, which then in turn allows just pretty much raw, 100% fuel go into the engine to allow it to start easier. So then obviously once the engine's running, then we'll turn off the choke and go from there. So the way that I start these is I have the choke on, everything else is ready to go. So I like to give it a few slow pulls, usually do 3. And then after that, I'm gonna pull it hard. It should start right away. So I had it on choke when I started it, and when it revved up, I turned the choke off. So now it's running like normal. And you can hear it's running pretty quiet. And that's also because on the Hondas you have this eco throttle switch. It's just an on or off switch. This is also because it's the inverter generator, like I mentioned earlier. It allows the engine to match its speed depending on the load that you're plugging in. So because with the eco throttle on, the engine will essentially be idling until I put a load on, then it would rev the engine up. So I'm going to turn this off to show you how the engine RPMs come up, and I'll turn it back on to slow the engine RPMs down. Okay. Now they're up, and they're back down. So again, that's a huge fuel savings for these inverter generators, just for the fact that Honda and other manufacturers, they put some type of load matching device on there, like a switch or something. This is just called eco throttle on the Hondas. They may call it eco on other generator brands, but that's the cool thing about these. So I can already tell that this engine's running a lot smoother than it was when we were camping recently, and I think that's really because of the brand new fuel, because I had really old fuel in this before. So again, if you're not using these a lot, make sure you run that old fuel out, and always be sure to add some type of fuel treatment. Again, I recommend ethanol shield. These should work just like Sta-Bil or any other brand you may have heard of, but they work really well.